This is video number 7, tutorial number 7 for architecture 5354 and assignment number 1, site model. In our previous video, we covered how to move and create new elevation tags and new elevations. In this video, I'm going to cover a couple of things. First of all, we created a property line that was based on inadequate information last time. Since then, I've gotten the two property kind of settings of your Studios instructors, and you notice I've added them in. So you can go ahead and put those in there for your reference. Or for me, you can just leave this one either way, but probably best if you went in and put the property boundaries. And those are just drawn here as two different property boundaries, two different sets of property boundaries. The other thing is that in conversations with your studio instructors, they've kind of identified this boundary area right here. Actually, the boundary area they were describing to me was right to here. And halfway through this civil engineering building. Since we already, I thought, well, let's just go ahead and model the whole, we'll just stop the model at the civil engineering building. So let's just, center line this. And you don't have to model all of this, okay? But we can, I'm going to align this with this. Let's see here. Align to this. There we go. And so we can, and you'll notice I got an error, and that is because these lines are all based on the GIS, and so they are not, as I talked before, perfectly straight. The only line that's going to be perfectly perpendicular. Now you can choose as you draw. Okay, you can choose to ignore those lines and just draw them vertical so that your lines may be slightly off from the ones that we're using, but these are the correct, in a sense, correct angles of the surfaces. The next thing we're going to do, and we can go right here. Let's just go to the edge of that building right there, to the edge of that planner area, or we can go even further out than that. Okay, let's align this to this. No, this. Yeah. Okay. And we'll just align that right now. Once again, you don't have to model all this. You can stop modeling wherever you feel is appropriate. I do want this whole building modeled as a mass, not as a representation. And this building here is, and I'll talk about that in another video. Okay, so the next thing we really need to do is set some initial levels. And there were two default levels that came with this, level 1 and level 2. And level 1 is at 0, 0, 0. Let's go into the our south elevation. Okay. And we can see those right here. So level 1, we're just going to rename that. And that is going to be the top of the curve. Okay, so the top of the curve down here, once again, right now we're assuming this is flat. Okay, and we can change that later, but I think for the purposes that we're trying to get here, we can just assume that this is flat, even though there's about a 1 foot grade from here to here. We're going to be asked to, code is going to require that you build the building, the first floor of the building, 1 foot above the curb height anyway. So if we make this level 1 the curb height, then. So what I'm going to do is just select here, and level 1 we're going to call the, curb. And then yes, change all the associated Now, we're probably not going to need these floor plans, but we'll leave them in there for right now. And then the second level, okay, as I said, the building needs to be 1 foot above the curb, that curb, and that's to keep from flooding. And that's in most codes. I don't know whether it's a requirement of Texas Tech University, but we're going to go with that. And so I'm going to call this the first, okay, and you can type out first if you want to, or you can do it as a number, first finish, and I'm just going to use the abbreviation first finish floor. Let's do this a little tighter so it doesn't, first finish floor. And I'm just, like I said, use the abbreviations. You can type it out if you want to. And I'm going to say yes, okay? So then I need to go in the south elevation here. I'll just go ahead and save this. There's not really any reason to. And so you can see first finish floor. Well, that's technically only 1 foot above the curve. Okay, so I'm going to go 1 foot here and move it down. And of course, they're going to overlap on each other, so I'm going to break these and move one above the other so that we can see that a little bit better. Okay. So that's where we're going to start the finish floor height. And then we've got curb, and the third one I'm going to add in is street, in the street level. And here I'm just going to duplicate one of these. It could be either one, really. Yeah, I'll just duplicate. I'll tab here till I get curb. There's a model line. There's a chain of wall lines, and then there's the and so I'm just going to, there's a couple of ways. I'm just going to hold the control key down and drag it down, and I'm going to drag it down here until I relabel it. It's not 15 feet, okay, by any means, but I'm going to do some things to it easier here. And then actually below the curb, that should be 0.6 inches. Okay, a minus 6 inches. Most curbs are 6 inches in Lubbock anyway. So there, and of course it still overlaps, so I'm going to bring it down. And I'm going to rename that. And we're going to call this top of street. Or it could just be street, but I'm going to top of street. Okay, so now we have the top of street, we have the curb, and we have the first finished floor, and those are the site, and then we'll add levels later as we begin to model different things. Okay, and so that's the end of this video. And the next one, we're going to go in and we're going to begin to build streets and sidewalks and that type of thing.